Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, taxes and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Michael and Remington, welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm very much so looking forward to our conversation today, all about entrepreneurship and specifically land and building a business through land. But before we dive in, I would love to hear from both of you a little bit more about your stories, your background, how you got together as well, and how you both got to where you are today.
So I come from a military background, at least my professional experience. I spent 11 years in the Navy as a submarine officer, and so that's kind of what led me to where I'm at now. Not obviously because I was a submarine officer, but because of ultimately some of the decisions that I made along the way. But served in the Navy, and as I was getting towards the end of my naval career, I was, thinking of those questions like, what's the next step? Where do I want to be? There's a lot of great opportunities in the civilian world to go get a job, a well-paying job. And I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do, was just go from one kind of a rigid, structured organization to another rigid, structured organization, because that's kind of the natural path there. And so I ended up looking for some alternative options, and I knew I was attracted to real estate and some of the opportunities that were there. And so that led me to going down the path of real estate investing, and more specifically land investing. That was about 4 years ago at this point, a couple years before I got out of the Navy. And ultimately I was like, hey, there's some good opportunity here. Started doing it on the side while I was still in the Navy for a couple of years, and got to the point where, hey, I can make as much money as I'm making right now on the side. What if I just, get out of the Navy and just focus on this thing, keep the main thing the main thing. And so that's what I did. I, kind of just cut the cord and was like, rather than go to some other civilian sector job, it's like, I'm gonna, venture out on my own, figure this out, and that ultimately led me to, meeting Michael. And with the real estate experience that I had prior to this, so I had done investing, about 10 years ago at this point, with some projects along the way, but I'd kind of put it on pause with my my military background. Ultimately led us to partnering and building a system that allowed us to, rinse and repeat a method that was, very predictable, very profitable. And so now we're in the process of growing and expanding and doing it better and doing it more.
Interesting. Love that. So, Michael, what did the journey look like for you? And then I'm curious how you both connected.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I started out in corporate sales. And so about the time that Remington was going into the Navy, I was looking for a job trying to find a way to survive this world. Like I knew I didn't want to do an hourly job where I was getting paid for time. I kind of had that I need to get more money than just for my time. And so I went into sales. And I found that that can be a very profitable industry, but I was miserable. And so after about 10 years of doing that, a little bit less than that, I started looking for, okay, what's next? And I started researching real estate, trying to figure out how to become a invested in real estate and have that be my source of income, because I know that real estate can generate an immense amount of wealth, right? And everybody talked about the passive dream of owning rental properties, and then you don't have to really work that much. And so turns out owning properties like that is a lot of work. So don't listen to anybody who's telling you it's not. So I was studying. I kept getting hesitation to move into that real estate world, because I had my job that was paying me to do what I was doing, and I hadn't found land yet. And then one day at a Halloween party, I actually stumbled into Remington, and he was telling me about how he's in the Navy, but he has this really cool thing on the side, and I was like, we need to be friends, right? So I weaseled my way into his life using my sales skills, and funny story, he thought I was somebody else and invited me over, and then he was like, when I got to his doorstep, he was like, "Who are you?" But he was nice enough to invite me in, and then we found some commonalities and some ways that we could work together. Um, and then I started working with him for a bit, probably about a year and a half, and then we ended up partnering. And we have neither of us have regretted that day that I was on my way into his life. So that's a bit about us. I left out a key factor in this transition.
Oh yeah.
Shortly after I met Remington, my boss could tell that I was miserable doing what I was doing, and I was trying to find something. So he's like, "Hey, you have 30 days to go find another job." So I basically got fired, and that forced me to be like, "Hey, Remington, we're doing this." And he was like, "All right, let's go." And so it just everything fell into place because I had done the study and the research that I needed to put myself in a position where I was ready to jump on that opportunity when it was presented to me.
Interesting. Okay, so you met at a Halloween party. Very random place to meet. Remington, I'm sure you have, and I mean, I'm sure you do as well, Michael, but at the time, I'm sure you had a bunch of people who were interested in what you were doing, as entrepreneurs who want to come into your life. And a lot of the time, those people are just not to the level or the standard that you would want them to be if they're going to be a partner. So, what was different about Michael when he came to you? Was it his amazing sales skills, or what was it that you were really like, this is a guy who I could essentially marry in a way and partner together?
Yeah, you bring up some really good points. And I had those same concerns in general and specifically with Michael. But at the time, I had a need, right? I was like, I need someone to bring some skills to the table that I didn't have. I'm not a sales guy, and I'm not like that person that's ideal to be on the phone talking to these people and basically leading to conversions, right? Taking our leads and turning it into a conversion. And so I don't know, I wouldn't say actively, but I knew that was going to be a limitation, and I knew I wasn't the best person to build that. So that was one thing. He happened to meet that need. Also, I was very sensitive to the fact that I didn't know Michael and I didn't want to marry him. And like they say in a lot of aspects, it was you date before you get married. And that's exactly what we did, because Michael had talked about like, hey, we should partner from the beginning, right? We talked about partnering from the beginning, and I kind of pumped the brakes on it because I was like, hey, I just don't know how we would do this, and I don't know if I want to do this. So instead of partnering from the beginning, we worked together, right? He worked for me, like he was a contractor technically for me, and then we saw how that relationship played out, and then realized that after dating, we wanted to make it more official, and that it was only gonna create more of an opportunity if we made it more official.
And then in hindsight, I was asking more than I should have asked from day one when I said, "Hey, we should partner." Like that was a big ask on my part. And I didn't even think about the ramifications on his part. So I wasn't really offended when he said no at all. I was excited that he was, "Okay, we're not going to do that, but we can do this." Like I was eager and hungry to get into real estate. And so if he'd have told me that I was going to work for him for no pay, which is one of the things I had offered to begin with, like I would have jumped at that to get into learning what he was doing. Um, but it worked out to where he was making too much money to feel comfortable having somebody work for him for free. And so we worked out a pay scale, and it worked out great. And then it really is interesting to look back on that year and a half and how things played out, and our personalities just line up pretty well. We have similar goals, similar ideas towards how money and life should be, and it all worked together to go forward. And since we've partnered, we've 10x'd our business. And I know that's a cliche thing. Everybody says 10x, but we've seriously have put the pedal to the metal, and we've just gone. Our business has blown up since we've joined forces completely, instead of me just being an employee.
Yep.
That's amazing. I think it's so interesting, and I'm happy for you both that you found each other in a very roundabout way, because there's so many entrepreneurs in the world, but it's so difficult to find those few people who you could effectively partner well with. So let's talk about the business. Dive a little bit deeper, and I guess maybe share what the business is in a little bit further detail. But how does the business operate? on your website, it looks, and I'm curious, it looks like the process is done completely online. So it looks kind of like an Empire Flippers where you will list the land and then there will be a purchaser online. So explain a little bit about the behind the scenes of the business and what that looks like. We're taking a quick break because we've been getting such great positive feedback on our new resource, the top 5 easiest residencies to obtain now. The link is in the show notes to grab your copy of this resource while it's still publicly available. You can expect to get more familiar with the top 5 easiest residency programs around the world, how you can obtain them, along with the $258 residency that you can get online today. And spoiler, this residency is great for crypto exchanges and KYC. Link is below to grab the guide, and let's get back into the episode.
Do you want me to take this one, Michael?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I like to talk about it with like 2 different sides, because in real estate, we'll keep it simple right now. So with any real estate opportunity, there's 3 main parts. You've got the deal or the opportunity itself. You've got the team and the structure to make that deal happen. And then you've got the capital that is required to get into that opportunity. So you've got those 3 main parts. And what we've done with those 3 main parts is split them into two sides. We've got our operations and management company that combines finding the deals and putting the team together to operate those deals and make them profitable. And then we've got the capital raising side of our company, which is responsible for generating the capital necessary to make all those deals happen. So they're 2 very different businesses that each serve a vital role in any real estate opportunity. And so it's good to understand at a high level, like those are the 3 main parts to any real estate deal and kind of where you want to fit into that kind of a thing, whether you want to get active into real estate or whether you want to just invest in real estate passively. It kind of depends. So if you want to be active, then you're going to be responsible for making sure that you can get all 3 pieces. If you're looking for an opportunity where, hey, I'd love to get the advantages of investing in real estate without going through the process of building a team and finding the deals, and you just want to kind of reap the rewards, although yes, you will share some of the rewards. That's just kind of the nature of the business, right? So you can share the rewards without being involved with your time, which then allows you to do the stuff that you love to do and the things that you really care about, which may not be figuring out how to find real estate deals and manage and operate those deals. So I think that answers your question as far as what you were looking for and kind of where the businesses lie on a big picture.
Yeah, it definitely does. So in you saying all of that, and I appreciate you kind of breaking it down into those 2 very crucial aspects of the business, buyers and sellers. You need both of those, and I guess investors as well. Where are a lot of the buyers and sellers coming from? Are those relationships that you have built throughout your network in the US? What does that look like in terms of bringing in buyers, bringing in sellers of lands?
That's an interesting concept. There are a lot of different ways to find those. There's some people that go out and they just network and they find groups of people, and they get this big list of people who have land that are selling and people who have land that are buying. But for us, it felt like a lot of work to manage all of that. So we go, and there's a resource. You can get online data of property owners. And so we send physical letters to that list, basically put us in front of them as a reputable organization that buys land. And we tell them basically we're going to buy the land and we'd like to do it for this, just to get that conversation started. And then we get them on the phone and we find out what their need is and we solve their problem. We're real big about finding solutions to problems on that side. As far as finding buyers, instead of trying to manage a big list and how we're sending things out, we find too much value in working with realtors who are specific to the asset class that we deal with. And so we've cultivated relationship with, I think it's about 50 realtors right now that we can use, depending on where we are throughout the country. And so we have a pre-marketing. We'll put some stuff on social media trying to sell stuff. Anything that doesn't sell before that, it goes onto the MLS with the realtor, and they do a really good job of getting quality pictures, quality descriptions, and then sending it to their list because they have specialized lists in different areas. It allows us to grow and be in more areas than just one state or one county, so we can diversify a little bit.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I have a few different questions from that, but I'm curious, what are some of, I want to say the biggest reasons, but also maybe the craziest reasons why somebody would want to sell their land in cash to you yesterday?
I'd say one of the common things that we come across is people that are either wanting or needing an easy button. Right? Everybody can relate to like, I need an easy button for my problem, or I want an easy button for my problem, and I'd rather press that easy button rather than figure out how to milk every dollar out of something that I own. Right? They may have a million other things going on in their life, and the last thing I want to worry about is how they're going to get, $100,000 out of their land instead of $75,000 out of their land yesterday. Right? So $100,000 in 6 months versus $75,000 yesterday can make a huge difference in somebody's situation. So I'd say in general, people are looking for an easy button. There's a lot of reasons why there may be an easy button. And one of the common ones is like they inherited it, or they've had it forever and they've never been there and they don't have a good use for it, but they do have a good use for the money that they could get if they were to sell it and if they were to just press that easy button because they've got other needs that they need to take care of. So that's the most common situation, is just they are looking for an easy button and we're there to help them with that if it makes sense for them. But it doesn't make sense for everybody, and that's why we care about like what is their actual need? Is there a need that they would rather get $100,000 in 6 months, that that top market dollar at the right time? And if it is, then it's like, hey, here's a list of realtors. Go talk to the realtors. That is going to be your best path to getting that. And so we're not trying to solve everybody's problem because we can't do that, but we are trying to solve the problems of the people who are well suited to solve.
A good way to correlate what we do to what most people are familiar with is cars, right? You buy this nice car, you use it, you're done with it. You can go put it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, whatever listing site that you want to list it to, and you can get top dollar that way. Or you can go to the dealership and they'll buy it back from you. They're obviously going to give you less for it than you would on the market, but it's that easy button that people are looking for. And so they're doing the same thing with us. There's people who have an asset that they no longer want. They value the cash more than that, and they're looking for that easy button.
Yeah, great way to put it, the easy button. In land, actually, just not that I'm planning to buy where we are in Mexico right now, but I'm always keeping my eyes open. There's a lot of land, and I foresee this city definitely growing exponentially in a few decades' time. But I'm always keeping my eyes out for land and for residential, sometimes commercial real estate, just to see what's available. And it's so interesting because we saw this great piece of land, huge, right on the main strip, right across from one of the bigger pharmacy brands here in Mexico. And it wasn't for sale. And I told my partner, we're walking past, and I was like, that's a great piece of land. They either know what they have, or maybe they are looking to sell, but they just don't know what that selling process is going to look like. They want that easy button. And then less than a month later, there was a for sale sign there. And it's just so crazy to me. If you ask, you never know. Yes, you might have to find out who is the owner, which in Mexico, you can ask some neighbors. It's not usually very difficult, especially if it's a residential real estate. But you never really know. And so it really just hit home to me to ask. You never know what will come of things until you just put yourself out there, maybe look like a fool, but maybe get an amazing deal.
Mm-hmm. And we do that on a large scale. Instead of having to ask for that list, we just put some criteria into the public databases that exist, because every property owner in the US, their information is public data, right? It's like who the property owner is public data. So we could be like, all right, we want to look in this county, in this state, this kind of property, this size, generate me a list. Boom, you got a list of 1,000 people, and then we plug in a letter template to that list, and we're able to potentially look like a fool to 99 out of the 100. But that one person that is looking for exactly what we can help them with, we're on the phone with them, and we're making a deal happen.
And is it always letters? Do like cold emails or any other method work, or is letters the tried and true form for you?
Letters is definitely tried and true, but we're actually in the process of testing other marketing methods. It all starts from the same place. We get the data, the property owners, and then it's next of like, okay, what are you going to do with that data? We know letters work, so we haven't stopped doing that. We're in the process of testing cold calling, ringless voicemail, and SMS for generating the leads in the same way. So they're working on the same list or getting the data in the same way, but we're seeing kind of a cost versus reward with the different marketing methods.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so let's talk. I know you will definitely have some opinions about this, and I'm very curious to hear it. Land versus residential real estate, commercial real estate. I think when a lot of people think of investments, they immediately go to residential real estate. And oh gosh, for me, I mean, I think you said it, Michael. It's just such a headache, especially if you're on a small scale of like 5 or 10 houses and you're a landlord. I grew up with my parents doing that with homes, and I was just like, oh gosh, like this. I get it appreciates over a lifetime, which is great, but there's so many other ways to make much faster money, in my opinion, and it's just not worth the headaches. So what are some, I guess, obviously you can say a lot more about the pros when it comes to land. That's the business that you went into, but why did you not want to go into any other type of real estate and only stick to land?
Yeah, those are great questions. I think the first thing that you have to do on an individual level is look at what do I want to put into it and what do I want to get out of it. And if you're looking for a long-term hold appreciation, playing the depreciation game, going through that, yeah, buy some properties, hold them, take the long road. For us, we wanted something that was a little bit faster. So we went closer to that flip model, which is everybody's seen all the TV shows of flipping houses, right? But we're doing that same thing, but we don't have to deal with the unknown behind the walls. Like once you get into one of those flips, you could find thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage to that structure that just depletes the value of that property. With land, we pretty much know what we're getting from sitting at a desk. Like I don't even really have to go and look at most of the lands that we're looking at. We do have realtors that we partner with that go and look at them and give us a professional opinion on them. We do get appraisals on land, and so we have a very methodical approach. But I could theoretically sit at my desk and know just about everything that I need to know to make an informed decision about a piece of land. Whereas a residential property, I'm going to have to go to that property. I'm going to have to inspect it. I'm going to have to crawl under the house. I'm going to have to crawl up in the attic or have an inspector do all of that. With the commercial properties, you just have to have a lot of capital to get into that game, or you have to know a lot of people with capital that you can pull into that game with you. And so there's a lot of barriers to those two industries. And so we found land, it's a low price point for us to get into and to repeat. And we have found a way to make it, as Remington was stating earlier, repeatable and predictable. And so it was a no-brainer once we found this model that this is what we would be doing and what we would stay in. We've thought a couple of times of getting into the fix and flip model for houses a time or two, and every time we look at it, we're like, well, we don't know what is behind those, and that's really not our model. So we'll either quickly wholesale those, give them to somebody else who wants to be in that space, or just walk away from the deal completely because it's not really where we want to be.
Yep. And I'll add as well that we were looking and okay with a more active strategy. So like land, at least how we're doing it, is very active in like what is necessary, not in the asset itself. Like once you have the land and you're trying to sell it, it's super hands off and easy, right? It's like it doesn't get much simpler than a piece of dirt, right? It's just sitting there. You don't really have to maintain it for the most part, or do much to it. But what you do have to do is go through a lot of managing and operations in order to find those deals and screen them and go through the process and doing it at the rate that we're doing it. And so it's a very active and involved process, which is something we wanted to do. And so, like Michael started with, is like asking yourself, really, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a passive investing opportunity, or are you looking for a new hobby or a new side hustle or a new, even job or business that you want to build? Because that's ultimately what we realized we were doing, is that we're building a business, and the business model and strategy is finding land at a good price and selling it for a higher price. It's kind of like a retail business, right? You buy wholesale and you sell retail. It's effectively the same kind of model, but there's a lot of management pieces that go into that, between getting the inventory and then selling the inventory. So it comes back to, what are you actually looking for on an individual basis?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one of the key elements that Remington pointed out there is most people don't realize that investing in real estate is a business. And if you don't treat it like a business, then it's not going to produce what you want it to produce. And so before you're looking at getting into any type of real estate, are you interested in starting a business, or are you just looking for a passive income? If you're looking for a passive income, then you find somebody who's already doing it, similar to us, and you find out how you can work with them. If you're looking for a business, there's a lot of reward to do it, but it's also a lot of work. And so figure out what you want and then find the path to get to where you want.
Are you interested in becoming a global citizen and living a lifestyle by design in a country that aligns with you? If this is a lifestyle that you're seeking to create, we can help. Whether it be multiple residencies, citizenships, bank accounts, trust or company formations, we operate in 30 plus of the most tax-friendly jurisdictions around the globe to get you structured properly. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and to get your global citizen journey underway today.
Yeah, really that lifestyle component of what it is that you want out of life and what your lifestyle is going to look like. Okay, so I want to move into the entrepreneurial mindset space. I'm curious what that looks like for both of you. But before doing that, I mean, there's a lot more we could touch on when it comes to the business and land. Is there anything that we have not touched on in this conversation so far pertaining to the land, the business aspect that you would like to touch on?
Well, something that we mentioned or had talked about near the beginning was kind of, what some of your audience is looking for and what people care about, and their unique situation. And from a like, hey, what's in it for me perspective for these individuals, is we can work with anyone in the world as far as from a passive perspective, right? If somebody is looking for a passive opportunity to invest, and like, hey, they vet us and like, yeah, we're comfortable with the strategy, we like what you're doing here, we want to be involved, they don't have to live in the US in order to partner with us, right? So it is a international opportunity that exists there. Now, as far as like the kind of properties that we're investing in, I'm sure the model works internationally, but we're not involved in properties internationally, if that makes sense. And so, we're stateside, and we're rinsing and repeating our process where we know it works and where we're familiar with the rules and the regulations. And so I figured that kind of a background might be helpful for people who are listening, and to figure out maybe where they might fit into, to what's going on with us.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I'm curious, in you saying that, if somebody is listening, I'm curious how you both got started. And from a finance perspective, was it that you had enough capital to buy a few pieces of land and you got started that way? Was it that you had to start with taking out loans and mortgages on these pieces of land? Like, what did that look like in terms of actually getting started in this space?
So at least with what we're doing now, it all started on my end, right? Because I brought Michael on board along the way, and it was a self-funded. I had some capital, but I also had access to, some credit cards, and it was kind of just like one deal at a time, and it ended up kind of snowballing, if that makes sense. And it's a low barrier entry to get started, especially if you're like, hey, I'm going to bootstrap this and I'm going to do the work myself and I'm going to figure out how to do it, and that's exactly what I did because I had the time and I wanted to do it. And so it was really exciting, because I, got a lot of reward from doing it because I wanted to do it. So that's where the money came from along the way. And now it's kind of transitioned to, in order for it to continue to grow and to provide an opportunity that like people don't have good access to, it's like, where can you walk up on the street and say, I want a 20% annual return on my investment that's secured by real estate, right? That's hard to find. And that's exactly what we can provide to our passive investors, plus or minus kind of a thing. There's more risk adjusted rewards and less risk adjusted rewards. But at the end of the day, like that's not an easy opportunity for people to step into. And we realize that there's a need and a desire for that. And it's something that we can provide, and it would allow for us to continue to grow and expand our operations.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was just curious about that because, I've looked into something somewhat similar outside of the US. I think there's so many interesting opportunities when you get involved in land and real estate and exactly what you're doing, and if anyone listening is interested, definitely reach out. The links are below, to either become a passive investor or whatever that may look like. But I think there's so many up and coming. I was telling you off of air that I spent a lot of time in Latin America, south of Mexico, usually, even though I'm here in Mexico right now. And it's such up and coming markets in some countries that some people probably can't even point to on a map. And I don't know, it's very interesting, but I think you either really have to have that capital like you did, Remington, because in the US, it's a lot more affordable if you have some capital, and then you can get a loan and the rates are going to be somewhat low, but it doesn't matter what the rate is. It's going to be low when you compare it to like 20% in Argentina. I think it's like 11 or 14% here in Mexico. So it's just wild. Different market, but I think still can be feasible anywhere in the world. So let's chat about mindset as entrepreneurs. You're both successful entrepreneurs. What is some of the mindset work that you have to do in order to continue your success, continue the business, partnerships, whatever that may look like for each of you?
Mindset is something that the two of us have actually spent a lot of time on, especially as of late. We just did a mindset retreat. We went to Mexico, spent 4 days with each day having a different theme. And so my mindset is really important to not only us, but most entrepreneurs. And so if you have the right mindset, you can do anything. If you don't have the right mindset, then you're going to trip and stumble on anything that you try and do. And so investing in yourself and in your mindset, listening to motivational speakers, listening to people who have done what you want to do, or something similar to what you want to do is crucial, because just knowing that someone's done what you want to do is going to drive you. If they can do it, I can do it. Right? The proof of concept is already there. But there's also sometimes you're stepping into uncharted waters. We've gotten to a point where we had a mentor in this industry, and we're as big, if not bigger, than our mentor at this point within the land space. And so understanding that, hey, sometimes you're going to have to step out into the unknown and forge your own path. You just have to build that mental fortitude to know that you've come this far, and you can't stop now because you have so much more that you can give. And then a big piece to it is looking at, why are you doing what you're doing, right? Are you doing what you're doing for selfish reasons, or is there a greater purpose behind what you do? Are you doing it for others? Like, why is it that you're doing what you're doing, and how do you give back to others? And when you're doing things for others or for a greater purpose, it's a lot easier to go a lot further than when you're doing it because I want to do it.
Yep. I'll share a couple of thoughts on my end, and I'll start with a bit of a shout out to one of my mentors and coaches from the mindset perspective. That he has really, first of all, he's focused on training people and helping people with their mindset that are entrepreneurs and business owners, right? To help them go to the next level. So that's what he specializes in, and that's some of the involvement that we had with the program and the retreat that we went to. So that's been instrumental. But what I think a lot of we run into as entrepreneurs is we either don't realize what we're capable of, or we know we're capable of greatness and we beat ourselves up along the way because maybe we're not quite doing as much as we could be doing. We're kind of comparing ourselves to this level of perfection, this, ideal case scenario, and then we're kind of beating ourselves up along the way. But either way, the big thing for me is that, with the right mindset, you can find fulfillment along the whole journey. It's not once you get there, you're going to then be happy, right? You can be happy now where you're at, and have that piece of fulfillment and enjoy the journey rather than think that once I get to the horizon, I can then enjoy life. And, it's a powerful thing because most entrepreneurs are overachievers, right? They're like, they can do great things. They're doing great things, but they're always, comparing themselves to something they don't have, and they need that next thing because that's what they feel like they need to be happy. And so it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Some people are in one space or the other, but mindset is huge. And if you're not enjoying the journey along the way, then you're missing out on a lot of the joy in life to be had.
Are you a global citizen or digital nomad? One of the most difficult parts of this lifestyle is not being surrounded with a like-minded community. I've personally struggled with this, and most global citizens have as well. But now there's a simple solution. Fairytrail is the ultimate app for digital nomads, remote workers, and even van lifers. Whether you're a solo traveler, a couple, or a family, Fairytrail helps you connect with like-minded adventurers. 93% of the Fairytrail community are fully remote or aspiring to be. And for being a podcast listener, use the code WorkWealthTravel for a free lifetime membership for a limited time. Download the Fairytrail app today on the App Store or Google Play Store and get connected with your like-minded community worldwide.
I absolutely agree with that. And an example that always comes to mind for me with that is it relates to entrepreneurship, but really what comes to mind is I travel all the time for business, for personal, and my life is travel. I don't have a home base anywhere, but I always find myself, we'll be a month in Argentina and it's like, oh, but next month we're going to Chile, or next month we're going to Asia. And so you're always looking forward to what's next. And I really have to work on being in the present and being grateful and happy and just enjoying not even the day, just the hour, the minute, because it's so easy to think ahead, forward think, which is great. And it definitely serves a purpose. There's a time and a place for it. But in entrepreneurship and travel and the lifestyle that I have built for myself and what that lifestyle looks like for me, the lifestyle that I want, I really have to continue to try to be present. And it can be a challenge, but in business, in life, it's something that is so rewarding. Not saying that I'll ever, achieve the end destination, but it's also about the journey to get there. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you both for your time. So if anybody is interested in learning more about land investing, where can they find you online?
Digital Investor 101 is a website that you can go to and click the button saying that you want to get some more information. This is a free gift that we have for our listeners right now. Anybody who wants to get to know us a little bit better, we've put together this. It's a mini course so that you can learn more about investing and real estate in general. So it's going to teach you the terminology. It's going to teach you some of the different aspects of real estate. So any beginner person who's trying to get into the real estate world, they can go to this resource and they can get up to speed, and then they can have a logical conversation with somebody about this, and it'll help you make informed decisions about when you're making your real estate journey. And so you can get in there. Down at the bottom, there's a button you can click if you want to learn more about the mindset stuff. I'd love to talk to you about it. Just feel free to click that and give me a call or schedule a time that we can talk. or put your information in there and you'll get that resource.
And I'll add to that, it's not specific to like the investments that we have. It's very a high level, broad, to help people think through, okay, I want to invest. What do I care about? What do I want out of an investment? Right. So it helps guide them through the kind of questions that they want. And a lot of them are like financial based, of like, okay, have you thought about where the funds are coming from? Have you thought about the tax implications? Have you thought about what your financial needs are? Are you looking for cash flow? Are you looking for long-term growth? It walks you through those mental exercises to help you know what you want. So then when you find what you want, you can be like, yes, that's what I want. And you could be prepared to take the next step. And on the other side of like, you could be prepared to vet that person that you really want to partner with, because that's the other side of it. As long as you know what you want and you're good at finding the people that can help provide you with what you want, then you're setting yourself up for success. And that's what we're looking to do, is just help engage people and help provide them with some good resources to be able to do that.
And also with that, Remington's done a really good job of putting some really short videos on there so that you can, in a very short amount of time, get a lot of information out of that tool. So feel free to check that out. We'd love to get that out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's cool. That sounds like a really great resource. And I love that you're just giving that out to people for free to get them educated, because I mean, if you're interested in this space, you have to start somewhere, and it's probably going to be closer to the bottom. What is your website, so that if people are interested in learning more about what that would look like, where can they just check out the business online?
Yeah, they can check us out at digitalnomadcapital.com.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you both for being here. Very interesting conversation. All of the links are below. Go check them out. And thank you so much for your time.
See you guys.
Right,
Thanks,
thank
Nicole.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag me. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me on this global citizen journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.